Dandraj. He is a principal of Nirmala College of Pharmacy. Sir is having more than 28 years of experience, guided almost 34 PG projects, and guided many PhD students in his credit. Sir's areas of research of interest is targeted delivery system, vaccine delivery system, in vitro screening of antimicrobial, antiviral, cytotoxicity, anti-tumor in animal cell culture models. Sir also having the vast experience in research area like drug testing, screening of medicinal plants for anti-cancers, published more than 35 international papers in a peer-reviewed journals, and also published 59 national research papers, presented more than 93 research papers in various national and international conferences. Sir also bagged uh, many grants from the government and non-government organizations. Sir also published 2 books, and he has participated as a resource person, coordinator, and convener of 2 AICTE-sponsored QIP program for the teachers. Sir also served as a scientific committee member and organized workshops and continuing education programs. The list is very big, and Sir has also received funded projects as a grant from government and private funding organization like DST, AICT, DPT, tuned to 75 lakhs. Also received of 22.5 lakhs as a principal investigator for the modernization of pharmaceutical biotechnology laboratory. So he is also a member of many professional affiliations, which includes APTI, IPA, and FIP. With this brief introduction, I welcome our first speaker, Dr. S.A. Dandraj sir, to deliver his talk on COVID-19, zoonotic spillover, dilemma in drugs and vaccines intervention. Owing to Dr. Dandraj sir, sir, I am requesting you to take up the session now.
Am I audible, Dr. Padmanabhan?
Yes, sir, very clear. You can proceed,
Okay.
sir.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Padmanabhan, for your very kind words. At the outset, let me thank the management of Nirmala College of Pharmacy and Nirmala Institutions, administrator, and my dear colleagues for their support and encouragement to organize or to convene this webinar and also to speak in this event. Good morning, one and all. My respected mentor, my respected teachers, my dear colleagues from pharmacy fraternity, and my dear student participants and participants from other professions. Thank you very much for taking your time and joining this webinar at this COVID-19 pandemic situation. As my mentor, the President of Pharmacy Council of India, Professor Suresh, has mentioned in one of his webinars that we are undergoing many disruptions during this time. In the sense, disruptions, family disruptions, personal disruptions, social disruption, and of course, disruption in professional work disruptions. Midst of these disruptions, we are now managing very efficiently as a pharmacist. So as a fellow pharmacist, I must congratulate you all taking this pandemic situation as a challenge and managing it very efficiently. So at this juncture, I thought I should present uh, a series insight of COVID-19, which is comprised of a mixture of a bit of virology, genomics, pharmacogenomics, and viral cell entry mechanisms for identifying the antiviral drug targets and deciphering the site of action, and a little bit about gene therapy. So I thought a mixture of these small areas put together in form of webinar I would like to present today. A deep insight about the COVID-19. Without further ado, please allow me to go into my presentation titled COVID-19, a zoonotic spillover, dilemma in drugs and vaccines intervention. I hope I am audible and clear, and I have shared my screen. I hope everyone is able to see my screen. Dr. Padmanabhan, can you just hint me about it? My screen is visible? Hello? Hello? My screen is visible? Okay. Thank you very much for that. What is a zoonotic spillover? A zoonotic spillover is a disease that is transmitted from animal and or insects to humans. Actually, this spillover event is the cause of more than 1.6 million new infectious diseases that enters into the human population day in and day out. Don't be panicked. When this virus or any infection enters from an animal source into the human source, it is a one-way and dead end, which means after entering into the human system, it will not spread to the other system because it will undergo a lot of challenges with our immune system and it will be destroyed. But of course, due to some spontaneous mutation and continuous mutation process, there will be a simple jump or a slip of this particular virus from the animals into the human population. But that will not happen immediately. It is a very long evolutionary process and is highly complicated. So, but when the virus managed to enter into a new host cell, it is entering into a house of a new door by clicking onto the receptor and enter into the cell and able to replicate and infect the species or the human, then it can produce this disease, and from that onwards, it can transmit the disease to the other human beings. So this is actually called as the zoonotic spillover, which happens by chance, by matter of a spontaneous mutation, a simple jump or a slip from animal and or insect to humans. That's how it's happened for COVID-19 also, which we termed as zoonosis. Scientists found that the closest virus to COVID-19 disease-causing virus is a bat virus, which has been sequenced 20 years ago. Q et al. Have reported in 2019 that genomic sequence of the SARS coronaviruses from market spheres are almost identical with the genomes of the human. And Yang et al. In 2020 reported that 96.2% of similarity in the genetic sequence of the SARS coronavirus with bat. What it tells that? Actually, based on these studies, Loroso et al. In 2020 come out with the statement or the hypothesis, from the natural reservoirs, coronaviruses jump into other animals including humans, but not directly. When you Q et al. Said that the genomic sequence of the civet virus and human virus are almost same, but 96% of similarity in the genetic sequence have been observed between SARS coronavirus 2 with the bat, which means that the natural reservoir for the coronavirus is the bat. And from the bats, the coronavirus has jumped into human via an intermediate host, that is the civets. So by this intermediate mechanism from the primary host through an intermediate host, the virus jumps into the human system, which is called as the zoonotic spillover or zoonosis. So the SARS coronavirus 2, which causes the disease which is named as coronavirus disease 19, has been graphically, the transmission and the human-to-human transmission, how it occurs, has been given here in the graphical abstract. The SARS coronavirus 2, which are phylogenetically and genomically similar to that of the SARS virus, which is present in the bat coronavirus. So this SARS coronavirus, SARS-like bat coronavirus, is the primary host for these coronaviruses. From the primary host, either by consuming the food of this primary host, consuming this primary host as a food by the human being, or with a direct contact, it can go to the human host reported by Sharon et al. From that human, it has go to human and human transmission. But actually, many genomic analysis and recombinant genomic studies have said that this is not happened like that. That is, from the primary host, the virus have jumped into an intermediate host, mostly the civets, the market palm civets, or African wild civets, or sometimes pangolins. And from there, it has been transmitted to the human host through the animal handlers, and from that human, the human to human transmission have occurred. So that's why here I blocked or ruled out the transmission of the virus from the primary host directly to the human being, either by consuming that as a food or by the direct contact. Then from here onwards, maybe we can, how it is spreading, or how the widespread or the virulence of the virus have acquired in the matter of 3 months, that we have to study thoroughly. So that's what we are going to study in another about 10 to 20 slides, which tells about the intervention and therapeutic strategies. So the lesson we learned from the animal coronavirus. So listen to you carefully, that 18 years after the emergence of the SARS epidemic in China and 8 years after the emergence of Middle East MERS respiratory, that is Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, MERS in Saudi Arabia, now another SARS coronavirus have emerged in December 2019 in Wuhan city, in Hubei province in China, where when the humans are exposed in the wholesale wet market, they are supposed to sell red meat and so-called exotic meat. The zero patient was reported in December 2019, which is an animal handler selling the red meat in the wet market. From that time, the virus was isolated and as named as novel coronavirus 2019 nCoV. Then later on, first, actually, my dear viewers, it has been named as Wuhan coronavirus. Then it has been changed to 2019 nCoV, and now it has been termed as by the Taxonomical Institute as SARS coronavirus 2 or SARS-CoV-2. So this has caused its disease, started its infection in December 2019, which that time it was called as epidemic in China. But within 3 months in March 2020, it has crossed almost all the continents and spread throughout the world and has been classified by WHO as pandemic in March 2020. But the lesson is, when you deep dive in the history of the coronaviruses, there are only two human coronaviruses had been known before SARS emergence. What is the lesson learned? At the beginning of the SARS epidemic, ladies and gentlemen, almost all early index patients had animal exposure before they developing their disease. When we identify that the causating agent was SARS virus, then we could be able to identify the SARS coronavirus and anti-SARS coronavirus antibodies also in farm civets and animal handlers in marketplace, that is Wuhan. Later, wide-reaching investigations compared the SARS coronavirus strains between the farmed wild-caught civets and market civets. And they found out that it has been transmitted to the market civets from the other animals only. What is the other animals? What is the other animal which has caused this spillover between the interspecies, that is from civets or from any animal? So when the recombination analysis I've done between the combination of two existing bat strains, WIV16 and RF4092, when this particular recombinant strain has been obtained, it's called as civet SARS-CoV strain SZ3, which means that what I mean here, the civet SARS-CoV strain S3 as found in civets, which is nothing but a recombinant strain of two existing bat strain. So this tells that these discoveries suggested that the bats may be the natural host of the SARS coronavirus, and that civets were only the intermediate source, and from the civets, the spillover of the virus has happened into the human population. So with this, we can prove that the spillover happened of the virus happened into the human population from the intermediate host, not directly from the reservoir, that is the natural host, bats. When you see this SARS-CoV-2 origination and transmission, actually all SARS coronaviruses are falling into the category of Coronaviridae family, genera, beta coronaviruses. There are 4 genera, that is alpha, beta, gamma, and delta. Alpha and beta coronaviruses infect only the mammals. Beta and gamma infect the birds. But the reservoirs for alpha and beta are bats and rodents, and for gamma and delta, it's for the birds or the reservoirs. And when you see in this picture, you can see a solid dotted red line, which shows the origination and transmission. So the origination of this SARS coronavirus from the bat to the civet, from the civet to the SARS, then the SARS coronavirus passed into the human, which has caused the SARS epidemic. Now COVID-2 caused the COVID-19. Likewise, and another pathogenic from the natural host bats through camels, it went into the human system and caused the epidemic MERS in 2012. And all other 4 human coronaviruses have produced only a very mild respiratory difficulties, and it has not caused any epidemic or serious situations. But this slide shows the summary of the SARS coronavirus, its origination, transmission, and the spread. That is, from the wet market, the coronavirus from the wet market is the source for the coronavirus. When they are handling the coronavirus in sister, that are bats, these bats transmitted this virus by interspecies transmission to wild animals and also to the camels. And from there, it is transmitted to the human beings by alpha and beta coronavirus. And from human, the human to human transmission occurs. and the epidemic or pandemic situation arises depending upon the virulence of the virus and nature of the spread. To understand how the SARS coronavirus replicate, what is its genome structure, how it replicate in the host cells, and how it can spread very fastly into from one host cell to the other host cell, and how to identify the antiviral targets for identifying for the purpose of discovering the new drugs candidates and also the vaccines. We need to understand the structure of the SARS coronavirus. The SARS coronavirus structure is a typical virus structure only. It's a RNA virus, encapsulated virus, and it having a nucleocapsid protein encapsulated with nucleocapsid protein. It is having an enveloped glycoprotein E, spike protein S, which is the culprit for the entry into the human cell, and also the membrane glycoprotein M. So now, quickly we see into the SARS-CoV genome. Allow me to explain here a bit, but I'll put it in a very simple term, though it is looking the what I call the 1D structure of the genome may look complicated, but I put it in a very simple words. So this coronavirus genome, it is a positive single-strand RNA viruses, which is among the coronaviruses. This coronavirus is having a very bigger genome, 25 to 31 kilobase, and from 5' to 3', it is having about 6 ORF regions, and the 1/3 of the ORF region, ORF 1A and 1B, codes for a particular enzyme called replicase. And replicase, we are going to discuss about the replicase. And the replicase are nothing but the RNA-dependent RNA polymerase, which is necessary for the coronavirus replication. And another 4 ORFs, which is coding for the S proteins, that's the spike protein, membrane protein, envelope protein, and nucleocapsid proteins. So, and here, sorry, when you see this, I'm in the slide number 10 now. When you compare the genome of the MERS coronavirus and SARS coronavirus, there is a slight mutation occurred in the position 8A, you can see. And between the SARS coronavirus and SARS coronavirus 2, there is in 2 places the mutations have happened. In future slides, I'm going to explain that mutation very detailedly. That is the reason for causing this pandemic situation. The replication of the coronavirus RNA, how it is done, I will explain this. So this will also explain how the SARS coronavirus 2 gained this increased virulence, increased host range, and increased tissue tropism, which is the reason for the widespread virus in the world. This coronavirus RNA normally present in the form of a positive sense RNA, and this replicase transcriptase complex, or otherwise coded by ORF 1A and 1B, or coded by ORF 1A and 1B. What is the ORF? It's an open reading frame which consists of a start codon, a coding sequence, and a start codon for a particular protein. When it is transcribed and translated, then particular protein is produced and it does its action. So likewise, ORF 1A and 1B codes for the replicase transcriptase protein, which is otherwise called as the RNA-dependent RNA polymerase. What is RNA-dependent RNA polymerase? Taking the RNA strand as a template, this RNA polymerase can produce a copy RNAs. But unlike in the retroviral viruses, we use RT-PCR and all, we heard about it, where we use the reverse transcriptase. The reverse transcriptase is an RNA-dependent DNA polymerase. So from an RNA strand, it produces a copy DNA strand. But this RNA-dependent RNA polymerase produces a RNA strand from a template of an RNA strand itself. So likewise, from the positive sense of the coronavirus RNA strand, So this replicase or RNA-dependent RNA polymerase will produces another RNA strand, which is a positive strand. So please don't see this particular strand now. I'll come to this point later. So a positive strand with the help of RNA-dependent RNA polymerase produce copied and add another copy strand, which is also a positive strand, that is coronavirus RNA. But this RNA-dependent RNA polymerase is some sort of a stupid polymerase. Why it is called stupid polymerase is, the reason is it cannot do any proofreading activity, which means that it tends to attach the wrong nucleotides when it is copying the base pairs. When it attach or incorporate the wrong nucleotides also, since it doesn't not have any proofreading activity, it cannot correct the nucleotide sequence. So because of this, what will happen? A mutation will accumulate in the daughter RNA strands. And sometimes the stupidity of the RNA polymerases, while copying one strand, it will jump to a RNA strand of another virus and copy that also, and recombine both and produce a hybrid RNA. So which is called as, suppose this hybrid RNA is produced from the RNA strand of the same two viruses, then it is called as a homologous recombination. Sometimes the stupidity in the jumping mechanism will occur. What will happen? It will hybrid the coronavirus RNA with other virus RNA also. So then the hybrid DNA will be a heterologous recombination. So this homologous and heterologous recombination will have, it is called as antigenic drift. So because of that, new properties or new protective gears has been provided to that particular virus. So what happens here? This positive strand of the coronavirus undergo a discontinuous transcription and to produce many subgenomic mRNAs. This subgenomic mRNA is nothing but the short sequence of the whole length mRNA sequence. So that will code for the protein like S, M, E, and N and all. So those proteins are all produced and will be ready here when this coronavirus RNA is replicated, and the packaging activity will happen at endoplasmic reticulum and in the Golgi bodies. Then the virus progeny will be produced. Supposing here, if when this replication happens, when the daughter DNA come across with the another genomic RNA, when it recombines and it can produce a homologous recombined RNAs. So this recombined RNA is only the reason for this particular SARS coronavirus to get the increased virulence, increased host range, and tissue tropism. So we just look into the life cycle of the SARS coronavirus. The life cycle of the SARS coronavirus 2, that is which causes the disease COVID-19, first it goes and attach with the ACE2 receptor. The spike protein, S protein, what I said as a culprit, it goes and attaches, binds with the ACE2 receptor. ACE2 is the angiotensin converting enzyme 2 receptor, which is there expressed in the cell wall of the human cells. So when it goes and binds into that, then the spike protein S2 unit help to fuse with the endosomic bodies, then it grows there, and from there the mRNA is sent out for its replication process. So how the replication process? Once again, the translation of the 1R of A and 1R of B occurs. Then this replicating enzymes, that is RNA-dependent RNA polymerase is produced, and it will replicate this whole negative strand of the mRNA, and also it will replicate the subgenomic mRNAs of SARS sequences, which is coding for the proteins like S, E, M, and N. Then finally, it will produce one complete full copy strand, positive strand of the SARS-CoV mRNA. Then this mRNA, sorry about it, this mRNA then assemble with the proteins, that is S, E, M, and N in the endoplasmic reticulum. Then this assembly will form intermediate compartment, which is called as endoplasmic reticulum Golgi bodies compartment, and this again with the help of Golgi bodies, it forms the virions in the vesicles. When by the exocytosis process, when the virions will come out and progeny will come out of the cell and start infecting the new host cell. So like this, the SARS-CoV-2 virus will carry out its life cycle in the host cell, particularly in the human cell. But how it enters the virus, how it enters our human cell, that mechanism you need to study to identify the antiviral targets. So Jianshan et al. Have identified 3 key cell entry mechanisms. Number 1 is, that is SARS-CoV-RBD, SARS coronavirus receptor binding domain, has higher ACE2 binding affinity than SARS-CoV-RBD. I repeat, SARS-CoV-2-RBD is having a higher ACE2 binding affinity than SARS-CoV-RBD, supporting the efficient cell entry. Please remember here, SARS-CoV-RBD causes epidemic with only less than 10,000 infections, but SARS-CoV-2-RBD produces pandemic with millions and millions of infections throughout the world. So paradoxically, this binding affinity with ACE2 by SARS-CoV-2, it is only in the spike region, not in the complete spike protein. What I mean by that? Please look into the structure of the spike protein. Spike protein consists of 2 units, S1 and S2 unit. S2 unit is comprises of 3 trimers. Always one will be in the standing up in position and other will be in the lying position. So, but in the SARS-CoV virus, that is SARS coronavirus, which causes epidemic, always the RBDs are in standing up position. What it implicates? If it is minimally, it is exposing its trimer or this RBD, it can easily escape the immune surveillance of the human cells in spite of being a potent virus. I hope you got this point, because this RBD binding domain is less exposed to the human surveillance. The antibodies against this cannot be produced by the human being immediately. So the SARS-CoV virus becomes highly virulent. And the third cell entry mechanism is, unlike SARS coronavirus, the SARS coronavirus 2 is pre-activated by pro-protein convertase furin. What I am trying to say here, normally the coronaviruses need host proteases for its pre-activation, but SARS coronavirus 2 will not depend on the host virus proteases. Rather, it is having its own pro-protein convertase furin, which is pre-activated in this particular point, that is between the S1 and S2 subunit of this spike protein. It is pre-activated, and this pre-activated PPC can easily make the SARS-CoV-2 enter into the human cells without the help of the host proteases. So that is the mechanism. So in the structure of this spike protein is given in the form of 1D structure. So I'm not going to deal much here. I mean, don't worry, I'm not going to explain much about this, but it is having the genome is represented of S1 genome and S2 genome. In between the boundaries of S1 and S2 subunit of the spike protein, there is a region called PPC site. Please look into this PPC site. There you can see a mutation occurred at the level of 685th amino acid sequence, that is RRAR. This RRAR is missing. This RRA is missing in SARS coronavirus and also in bat coronavirus and bat coronavirus. So this is called as SARS-related bat coronavirus, SARS-related bat coronavirus. In all these three viruses, this PPC site region is missing. This is region that is arginine, alanine, and arginine. This particular PPC site is responsible for having the SARS coronavirus 2 to have this three different cell entry mechanism to enter into the human cell. These features may contribute to the widespread of the virus, and successful intervention strategies must target both the potency of the SARS coronavirus 2 and also its evasiveness for identification of the new drug targets or the vaccine candidates. So once again, I'm going to just explain the mechanism of this SARS-CoV-2 binds with the RBD site. You can see this is the spike protein. The spike protein, the trimer, is trying to bind with the human ACE2 receptor binding domain. When it binds, you can see all this blue, okay, blue, three-dimensional blue structure where the trimer, it goes into a sleeping position or lying over position. So here, all are in standing up position. So once it's coming into contact with the ACE2 receptor, one only will bind here and the other two trimer will goes into the sleeping position. So this will help the immune evasion of the SARS coronavirus 2. To summarize the feature, the frequency of RBD standing up is high in SARS coronavirus, but low in SARS coronavirus 2. Human ACE2 binding affinity by RBD is low in SARS coronavirus, high in SARS coronavirus 2, which causes enhanced immunity entry. And pre-activation of the furin by PPC site causes what it causes enhanced entry into some types of difficult cells also. So this pre-activation by furin is not there. This mechanism is not there in SARS, not found in SARS coronavirus, but found in SARS coronavirus 2. So this only helps the virus to become more active. Right? So I am just consolidating now the replication cycle and cell entry mechanism in one slide, and so that where the key steps for the antiviral targets can be identified. So the coronavirus goes and attach with the cell host. Then there, when you want to block the attachment here, we can work along or play around with host protease inhibitors. Once it or before entering extracellular, I'll explain. When this virus binds, spike protein binds with the ACE2 receptor, there we can produce against this receptor, we can produce a neutralizing virus so that the receptor is blocked and the virus cannot go and attach with the receptor. That mechanism we can think of as an antiviral target, or otherwise we can inactivate the whole coronavirus 2, and for that we can produce neutralizing antibodies wherein which the neutralizing antibodies will neutralize this complete virus. This can happen in extracellular antiviral targets. In intracellular, if you come into the cytoplasm, when the cell manage or the virus manage to enter into the cell, then first step happen is fusion with the endosomic bodies. So that can be blocked with the fusion inhibitors. Then after, when the virus manage to release its mRNA out of its cell, then happens the replication. So here we can use nucleoside analogs to stop the replication. And protease inhibitors, here we can use to cleave this mRNA before it entering into the replication stage. And after the replication happens, then we can't stop, and the packing of the viral RNA and the viral proteins occurs, and the new viral progenies are formed here. So that can be blocked by lipidomic reprogramming drugs. So based on this, what are all the currently the antiviral drugs and drug candidates available in the not in the market, in the studies, or the protease inhibitors, the already existing candidates are camostat mesylate and lopinavir and ritonavir, then nucleoside analog ribavirin, which inhibits the viral RNA synthesis, and this is the very popularly tested now, that is adenosine nucleotide analogs, that is remdesivir, which inhibits the viral replication. Then the fusion inhibitor, the drug candidate is uminovir. Then the neuroaminase inhibitor, oseltamivir, is which inhibits the viral replication. Then there are RNA polymerase inhibitors also. Favipiravir, this favipiravir currently marketed or currently approved by Japanese government, and also in India, some companies have got license for favipiravir, which is an RNA polymerase inhibitors. And some protease inhibitors, some SARS-CoV-2 specific antibodies, then cytokines in combination with the antiviral drugs are also in the studies, which blocks the viral activity by different mechanisms. Then other intervention strategies for antibody binding. I want to screen. The other intervention strategies based upon the structure of the RBD or the spike protein is explained here. There are 4 strategies. Antibody drugs can be developed against this RBD, which can go and tightly bind with the RBD, not allowing the virus to come and bind with the ACE2 receptor. That is first one. And secondly, you can raise the antibody vaccines can be developed. But here, one point is very important to be noted is, since this hidden RBD mechanism is available with SARS-CoV-2, we have to do some structure-guided engineering work before we are going into the second strategy, that is developing an RBD vaccine. So for that, we have to take a pre-fusion spike protein only. Why pre-fusion? Because after the fusion of the spike protein with the receptor, it will hide its RBD region or the spike protein region to the immune response. So because of that, we have to take only the pre-fusion spike protein sequences. So that particular sequence have to be added into the vector virus, and based on that, the RBD vaccines have to be developed. So this is what is looked into by many of the vaccine developers. That is almost 3 or 4 vaccines which are in the clinical trials or belong to this second category. And third category is the vaccines or drugs developed to target the S2 portion of this. But the S2 portion are less immunogenic, and so this third intervention strategy is not tried by many of the scientists. And the last one is the cell entry process of SARS coronavirus 2 can be blocked by the inhibitors. Some drugs by some mechanism can block the target protease inhibitors, which are necessary for the SARS coronavirus 2 for its replication or its entry into the human cell. When these protease activators are blocked by these inhibitors, then the SARS-CoV-2 cannot enter into the cells, though it is having PPC. This slide shows the vaccines under trials for SARS-CoV. So here, this vaccines has been developed from the year 2004 itself. There are about 27 antigens has been worked against for the production of vaccines against SARS coronavirus. There are about 8 whole inactivated vaccine, then live attenuated vaccine, 5 numbers, subunit protein vaccines, virus-like particulate vaccines, DNA vaccine, and vector-based vaccines have been developed in and tested in various models in these routes. But they also shown protection, but unfortunately, none of the vaccines are being approved or brought into the market for sale. The reason is very obvious. There is no volume, because before they developed this vaccine, the SARS epidemic subsided, and the commercial viability for this vaccine has gone down. And now, so this is what currently the COVID-19 vaccine, the COVID-19 disease is huge in volume, that millions and millions of doses we need, rather billions and billions of doses we need. So there is a huge scope for this particular COVID-19 candidate vaccines. This 9th June 2020 in WHO has come out with this draft landscape. There are about 10 candidate vaccine in clinical evaluation, 2 of the type of non-replicating viral vectors, and 2 of from the type of RNA viral vaccines, and 4 from the inactivated viral vaccines, and 1 protein subunit, 1 DNA vaccine. So out of which 2 are in the phase 2 trials. We all know about this, the University of Oxford and the AstraZeneca vaccine. This is against the spike protein. So this vaccine have entered into phase 2 trial. Though they were telling in the beginning it is only 20% active, but now they are telling it is 70% active in case of healthy individuals. So it has entered successfully in phase 2. Even AstraZeneca have already prepared 2 billion doses and waiting to release maybe in the month of September. That is one good news about it. And then another one is the lipid nanoparticulate encapsulated mRNA by Moderna. This is also in the phase 2 trials. And another non-replicating viral vector adenovirus vaccine from CanSino, it is in phase 2 trials. So remaining virus are all in phase 1 trials. At the earliest, we can somewhere in September or in October, we hopefully we can accept to release of these, any one of this vaccine into the market. And in India, the vaccine innovator and highest production of the rabies vaccine, the Bharat Biotech, collaborated with Thomas Jefferson Institute, Philadelphia, and they are developing a new candidate vaccine. Here, they have added the viral component, coronavirus component, into the rabies vaccine virus. The reason is the rabies vaccine has been shown to generate a rigorous but safe immune response or reaction that confers lifelong protection. So they are professional from Jefferson Vaccine Institute, quote and unquote, he said, since we know the immune system reacts to the rabies vaccine with a strong response, when we add the coronavirus component, we expect to see that level of protection and immune memory and carry over to the SARS-CoV-2 viral protein as well. So this also in the, hopefully on the pipeline. And this is about the various stages of the phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 of this Oxford vaccine group led by Prof. Pollard. It is phase 1 is over, and phase 2 they are planning for about more than 10,000, and phase 3 anytime they are planning to start, which having a genetic material that is COVID-19 virus SARS-CoV-2 spike protein S. And this slightly I will touch into the gene therapy, that is for the passive immunization of this passive immunization against this COVID virus or this SARS coronavirus COVID-19. This has been done by the adeno-associated virus by viral vectors. These adeno-associated viral vectors are a group of a small single-stranded DNA viruses which cannot usually undergo a productive infection. You can see here, these in its genome, all this gap pole enveloped genome has been removed. Then the therapeutic gene, in this case, maybe the gene of the spike protein can be incorporated, and they can be introduced into the packaging cell. And when you co-infect with an adenovirus, superinfection, then the packing can happen. Then the viral progeny consisting of this therapeutic genome can be produced, and this virus can be injected as a passive immunization. The advantage of this gene therapy is that it will have a very long-term gene expression and high degree of the degree of safety. Only one DNA SARS-CoV virus vaccine are currently in the development of this AAV-associated vectors passive immunization viral vaccines under the category of gene therapy. So to conclude, in an excellent review given by the Dr. Sheng Li, who is a very famous from the Wuhan Institute of Virology, otherwise also called as a Batman. So she said, between the quotes, given the prevalence and great diversity of the bat SARS-related coronaviruses, their close coexistence and frequent recombinant of coronaviruses, it is expected that novel variants will emerge in the future. She said this, please listen to this. She said this in March 2019. So within 8 months, in December 2019, the first infection, that is a novel variant, has been emerged. Many meticulously prepared review also highlighted how this coronavirus originate, evolve, jump, mutate, and infect their host after the SARS and MERS epidemic. What I mean is we have a lot of lessons learned and recorded, but the surveillance failed. So if the surveillance have not failed, particularly the genomic surveillance of the coronaviruses, could have the current COVID-19 outbreak been avoided? Debating on this, ladies and gentlemen, is not relevant now, but actions to avoid the next viral spillover from animals to humans is certainly a priority. So thank you very much for your patient hearing and joining throughout this end. And sorry for that, I think I've exceeded around 5 minutes, which has been given to me. And at this point, I would once again acknowledge management, administrator, and my colleagues, and the scientists who have contributed for this research. And my disclaimer here is, I have no conflict of interest. All materials and images used are free from copyright issues and from open sources only, and description done or with my own views based upon these studies. Thank you one and all. I will join you back during the Q&A section. Thank you. The questions are... I'm hearing directly. No, I'm not hearing. Padmanabhan, your audio is not online. Yeah. No, I'm not hearing. It's audible. Yeah.
Sir, audible, sir?
Yeah, now it's audible.
Please.
Dr. Padmanabhan, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for informative session, sir. In depth too. Highlight the areas of SARS genome, COVID RNA, and you also taught antibiotic and the protease inhibitor. And it's the exact position of various stages of vaccine development. And finally, you also highlighted about the gene therapy, passive immunization for SARS-CoV-2. Thank you very much. And from the participant side, Xavier Daniel, have two questions for you.
Okay.
You can your question now. Speaker in the position to answer you.
Yeah. Yes, Dr. Daniel.
I repeat, Professor Daniel, can you unmute your mic so thereby the speaker can listen your question straight away.
Okay. Hello.
Let me check the chat.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear.
Sir, very good morning. And the presentation was very nice, and we were very happy to listen everything. Actually, my question is actually very short, and in which you mentioned in your presentation the production of hybrid RNA is by the stupid polymerase RNA.
Yes.
So, which was just in my mind a small question. So that is there any antiviral drug is available to inhibit this particular area, so that the research can be more supportive by your knowledge?
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Daniel. It's a nice question. I don't know whether you can see my slides and all. I told in one slide, there is an RNA polymerase inhibitors. The people are working on RNA polymerase inhibitors, which can inhibit the replication of the replicase. That is RNA-dependent RNA polymerase. That is favipiravir. The favipiravir is currently they are studying as an RNA polymerase inhibitor, and you can work on that area. That is a very good area where it can stop the spontaneous and unwanted hybrid mutation. Okay, so which can stop the production of new clades of SARS coronaviruses also, which is happening in the state of Telangana and Tamil Nadu at present. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
For your question.